Good evening and welcome to the July 14th, 2022 Library Trustees meeting. We've reorganized things a little bit on our agenda, so we're going to start off today with correspondence.
There's no correspondence.
Okay. We're going to review the minutes of our prior meetings, we have two, May 5th and June 2nd. Does anyone have any comments? You wrote them.
They're great.
They're great.
So I didn't do the June second one, that was Mira.
Okay,
That was
that's
in June.
All right, everyone have a chance to review them then. Okay, we can accept a motion.
I move to approve the minutes dated May 5th, 2022 and June 2nd, 2022 as written. Second.
Great, all in favor, we have to do roll call because Sarah is on Zoom. So Sarah.
I approved, yes.
Okay. Ready?
I also approve.
And I also approve. So both minutes are ready to be posted. And at this point, it does not appear we have any public participation. We'll take time to walk through the door. So
Do we have public participation?
sometimes they come in. Unlikely. Oh. No, I did not receive anything via email. Sam, did you receive anything?
No.
I think we're going to talk about that as a program.
Perfect.
That's how I would like to deal with that.
That's
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Make sure.
Yep, that's great. So treasurer's report. Kimberly is not here today. She asked Sean to send the account balances and the BART, which they emailed to everyone earlier today, which is when he sent it. So the state grant currently has $0, but there's $4,890,761.28 in the capital project fund. And he noted that we should be getting the final state grant payment later this summer or fall. The trustee gift account has $5,588.66. And the building fund has $953,163.84. And the Barth took a hit this month, so you want to read. And it's real down, given the current economic situation. But we're still got plenty of money in there, so that's good. Anyone have questions or comments on the trustees treasurer report? Mira sent the Friends report. Chris, do you want to review what Mira sent to us?
Yeah, did you send it?
I did email it to you. Okay,
I just did.
fine, I just did it.
I'm happy to start.
I just put that on you, so that's
No, that's
unfortunate.
fine. I didn't do it. Okay. Yeah, I just
closed that part.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, so this is the Friends report as submitted by Mira. And she says the treasurer's report is netting $36,543, $210 in library book sales, $11 from a coffee cart, and 2 people actually used the QR code, which is kind of cool. Cans and bottles totaled $659, and they were collected during April transfer station. So she also says the third Thursday, since the meeting was held before the June 3rd Thursday plans were discussed, there was a booth with free kids book giveaways, free puzzles, temporary tattoos, information about summer reading, and lots of people stopped by. I was there, it was lovely. Plans were discussed for the July 3rd Thursday, which is coming up next week, the 21st. They're going to do book face. Oh, I love that program. It's fun. Bubbles, tattoos. Those were some of the ideas mentioned, and probably we will skip the August 3rd Thursday. They talked about mini golf, questioning should we do it in March 2023, and I guess it sounds like the vote was resoundingly yes. We're going to scale the fundraising down a little bit and look at Friday evening and Saturday. It's a good community event. People have been asking about it. Perhaps let some other town departments have a table, and Sarah Rembacher is going to reach out to the library mini golf vendor, secure a date in March, April of 2023. And that will continue to be discussed at future meetings. As far as the book sale room goes, Sarah made a handout of guidelines on what books are accepted for donations, and some training of volunteers will happen to keep the room organized. There was new business discussed. extractigator. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that word. Extractigator, Amy Green, from the Conservation Commission. That is a tool, apparently, that removes invasive plants. Is this a program? It sounds like a program.
It is an actual tool
It's an actual tool.
in the Library of Things.
That is
So
very
the
cool.
Friends funded to.
Okay, so
purchase one for
this
the
is something that
library.
we've added to the library.
So
Excellent.
our Library of Things has been expanded for that. And Sam emailed today to say that it has arrived just in time for the conservation.
The extractigator.
The extractigator.
It's upstairs if you want to see it.
And it arrived just in time for conservation's training for the weed warriors this weekend. So they will not only have the conservation department's extractigator, but they will also have the libraries now. So we've doubled the number of extractigators
warriors
in town.
to remove the invasive plants from conservation land.
Yes. And
Awesome.
their own properties.
That's
So it
cool.
will be available.
It sounds like a weapon from like a kid's cartoon. Extractigator. So then the next item is the coffee machine. The Friends looks like they've opted to buy a new one, budgeting around $1,000. The old one has lasted for 10 years, which seems like a long time for a coffee machine. And then the next item is coffee packets. This is done as a service. There's no profit, but trustees and librarians have noted a lot of mess around hot chocolate and sugar packets. Some solutions are going to involve kids in finding a solution, adding some signage to ask people to clean it up, and if necessary, keeping the cocoa packets behind the circulation desk, so people will have to ask. They are also going to skip the July meeting, and their next meeting will be August 17th. I can copy these notes into the minutes.
Yes, thank you for reading that. Yeah, so I know Sarah has gone on to ask the library mini golf guys if we can get a date. It's looking like maybe the very end of March, like that, beginning of April, just because there's a lot of libraries reinstating their programs. So it's really a good time of year. And I'm really thankful for the extractigator. So we should work together to get the description in the Library of Things and make sure there's a safety video. I think that's it for Friends. Why don't we do a build? Oh, Sam, actually going back to the Friends report, the coffee machine. Part of our discussion at Friends was to try to figure out how to better manage it since it's in a not highly watched spot. Has it been better since the summer, the last few weeks?
Yeah, I haven't had any complaints. I don't think there's been any hot chocolate in there. So
I do think it tells when the hot chocolate isn't in there.
yeah, so it's doing pretty well. There's a honesty bucket for the money, and it's still there, working out.
All right, so I do think we could come up with creative solutions, like maybe the coffee or the hot cocoa packets are in the
Kids are
YA desk, the children's room or upstairs, just so it I don't want to add burden on the staff, but it might be that out of temptation, like the easiest way to deal with it. Unless there's another way we can think of. I would love to get Catherine's how she might engage the kids to come up with a way to deal with it too. If she has ideas, that'd be great.
I'd be interested in also tracking if it's going down because it's summer and there's more.
It could be our social, or in our social dynamics of how the library gets these changes, right?
I think there was definitely noted that there was a problem when there were after hour groups
Right.
that were not being monitored quite as well. So
All right, Wendy, you have a meaty building update.
I got building updates, yes. So I'm gonna go out of order just briefly, a quick solar panel update. We're good. The issue was that the panels and parts were back ordered due to supply chain issues, and there was some consideration of kind of scrapping the order and doing a different order that might potentially come in earlier, and that was ruled out. So we're going with the order that makes the most sense. There is a supply chain issue. It is back ordered. We are anticipating a September install date. And the concern was that because everything had to be done by a deadline for the grant, would we be running up against that? And the town was very collaborative with us, which we appreciate, and so we're good.
Yeah, the
So,
paperwork was submitted, we secured the state funds.
yeah, the state funds are good, everything's kind of being held until the work is done, and we're all good. So now we're just in a holding pattern until pieces come in, and we did confirm the library would not need to close during installation. It won't interfere with patrons or librarians or be any kind of safety hazard. So that was great news. So we're really excited about that. This month was spent a lot of time with Sam and Katrina and Brian Fors going through the library punch list. We are trying to get all warranted items done before the warranty expires at the end of August, and we've made amazing headway. A huge thanks to Katrina, to Sam for his leadership on those pieces. The focus has been on warranty issues that were set to expire at the 1 year. We've fully resolved multiple ones, including the lower level drinking fountain, bottle filler, which was tripping the circuit. That's been resolved. The breaker in the staff room regularly tripping has been resolved. Paint touch-ups have been moved to a maintenance issue. There were 2 broken fridges, both have been replaced, and we're just waiting refunds on those. But the staff have access to that back again. There's a broken track on the sliding door in the meeting room, and that's been resolved, and the bathroom doors locking users out has been resolved. We've also resolved things, although there's some final action items scheduled but not fully implemented, but the problem itself has been solved. The landscaping, we've worked with Vitaldo, who's remained a great partner. He's returning in the fall to continue to assess the wildflower hill and make recommendations. This hill is expected to take several cycles to grow, so we're not overly concerned. We are looking at watering options as well once the drought is over or not as bad, and working with the town on that piece. And we did implement the signage to help keep foot traffic off, and talking to Diane, it sounds like that's had some positive impact, so that's been great. And he's going to help reseed and mulch areas of non-growth by the staff entrance as well. And then we're waiting on final plant replacements identified for areas where that needed to happen. The emergency lights blinking on and off periodically is believed to be a loose wire, so that's been diagnosed. The electrician is due out by the end of this month to complete that work. The elevator is no longer calling the police, so that's good news. A new phone has been ordered and will be installed by the end of the month, and Sam's been monitoring the beeping. We're not hearing that anymore, so we think that may be resolved. The children's room light fixture and the Tucker furniture is all supply chain issues, but they are ordered and we are in the queue for delivery in August. The HVAC noise has been partially addressed by the work to date. This is all Katrina, who has been working really diligently to track the electrical use, change dampers, get filters replaced, which is working with Sam on. The town has been really collaborative with us and loaning us and helping or offering to loan different things to get the filters accessible to George to be able to replace. And we're seeing a downtick in the noise in the meeting rooms, not so much in Sam's office yet, but that may just be the machine and the location of Sam's office. So we're in good shape with those overall. The sled door handle or the sled hill handle on the door is not going to be put in place at this time. There's some ADA issues with that, so we're leaving that alone. There are several windows around that are not fully closing or crooked, and the installer came out, took a look around. He's going to be replacing one that's broken in the search room, and the rest of them he thinks is due to going through a full weather cycle in New England. It's going to be coming back with a mallet and popping them back into place outside of library hours, so it doesn't interrupt patrons. We appreciate him cooperating with us on that. Katrina ordered directional signage for a couple of areas that was missing in, and we're going to be saving some costs with self-installation. And then George is ordering a missing fire extinguisher for the mechanical room. We've also looked at a number of non-warranty items, but that are impacting the functioning of the library. So we talked about the solar panels. The gas bill is higher than anticipated and is being explored, and Mark Rombacher is remaining on that team with Brian Fors. It looks like there was a setback that needed to be lowered down to, I think we're at 50 now. So it was higher than that. And so
at 65.
Yeah. So anytime the temperature outside dropped to around there, it kicked on, and there was no need for it to be kicking on. So since then, we don't have the data yet, but the gas bill dropped even though it shouldn't have been impacted by us changing the setbacks yet. So there's some open questions about that, but there's a team looking at that piece and on it. The electrical bills have been higher, and they seem to be closing pretty quickly. This has been really tireless work, with Katrina in particular leading the way. We appreciate that. There've been several collaborative meetings with LELD, which we appreciate. We're getting weekly data from them, looking at, every time Katrina makes a change to the system or with Sam makes a change to the system, what impact is that having on electrical usage? I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you've done today.
Yeah, so having LD join us and help us actually actively monitor has been really helpful because we can see based on time of day what the load on the electricity usage actually is on a daily basis, every hour. Like every 15 minutes, it makes a recording. So we can track the trends every day and align that with when staff's in the building, when patrons are in the building, when the temperature outside is what, whatever. So we were realizing that the system, I'm not sure who gave them what hours our hours were when, but it was coming on really early and staying on really late. And also there's multiple things happening. So one was that the hours of operation were much larger than we needed for most library hours. So we were able to shorten the occupied hours for when the system is running. And then we were also able to change the temperature settings. And one of the issues was that there was like a 4 degree temperature range where the cooling was trying to get to one point, and if it dropped, the cooling and heating system were battling each other there. So there was just constantly working because it was always using one or the other. So we expanded that range so that the two systems don't battle each other anymore. And that seems to have helped a little bit too. So
The building's also shutting down.
we're shutting down half an hour before closing right now, and we're going to track that and see how well the building maintains its settings, its temperature, because we do have to keep in mind that we do have evening programs, we have evening meeting usage and off-hour meeting usage, so that the library is used beyond just the library's hours, which is really important to keep in mind that we need to make sure the building is functional for not just the library, it should be working for us, but also that we keep those extra hours in mind and make sure that it's working for that time too.
And the options exist to be able to make a room comfortable versus the entire library. So
Yeah.
if you turn off the air conditioning and the building is energy efficient enough that it should hold temperature fairly well. If it's
So
not
right.
150 degrees outside, but if you needed to cool this room or the Sturts room, how are we able to kind of maintain a little more control?
So our current programmed control system is not that flexible.
Right.
So that is one of the questions we need to set up. We've had some back and forth with the GGD and Snowden, who designed the system, to say, can we make changes to the program to make it more flexible for us? So one of them would be if we can turn on the staff area earlier in the morning, because that's where the staff is, and turn on the stacks later. And does that help our energy conservation? And the other thing is the Murray room and the Sturts room specifically for off-hour usage, especially weekend usage, where can we just shut the building down to unoccupied settings, but if somebody's using one of these rooms, they could temporarily override the thermometer in the room if needed. So another thing is to see if we can do these temporary overrides on the thermostats themselves. But at this point, Sam and I went through and we checked every room setting, made them so that they couldn't be changed locally for most of those settings, except where having local control makes sense, and is out of patrons' control. And so we've done a lot of changes in the setting. We've had a week and a half of these settings running, and there's still, when I look at the data, I see things are high in certain places that I have questions about. So my first step is to go, I have questions for LELD, hoping that maybe they can help us, but also we're going to meet with the designers of the system and see if we can answer our questions using this data, but then also see if we can program the system to work for us. So if anyone has ideas of, especially you and the staff, have ideas of how the system needs to be changed to work for us, that would be amazing. Especially those like meeting hours, groups who are on weekends or when we're definitely closed, that would be, I think that's a big one for me to make sure that we can get that functional.
But it's way closer, so the numbers, I think it's frustrating because it seems like it should be getting closer faster, but the numbers themselves, when you look at them in aggregate, we're on track right now to be, I think the last one was within 15% of the estimate of July, whereas we've
The
been running.
projection.
The projection,
So like the
right,
company
so
gave us
we're-
a projection, and if you look at the first 11 days of July and project what we will use this July, assuming that holds.
Right.
Then we expect to be just about on projection now, based on the changes we just made at the end of June. Those were changes were made June 28th, so.
Right,
we
so
just made them.
So that's very heartening. because
And
we've
if
been-
we can see that the area under the curve narrowed, so we know that the new time settings on and off have impacted, are much more aligned to when people are currently in the building over summer hours. So it's just, there's still a few things, just like I still see the building doesn't actually, for the second week in a row now, the building doesn't come back down to the lowest level at night from Friday to Saturday. But when I look at the system, that's set the same way. That all the other days of the week are, that it does get down and it doesn't seem to be an outside air issue. So I have a few questions that I think are concerns, but when LELD emailed this afternoon and they had looked at the data and they were like, you've made changes and gotten it down. And at this point, they were like, this might be the baseline. This is we might have gotten it as far as we can, but I still want to make sure we follow through with all of the questions and requests and make the building function for us.
It's much better within a month's time. It's been a lot of work, and I think the questions are still there, so we're not done. But we were doubling the projected amount, and we're now really where we expect it to be.
Yeah, we whittled it down between April, May, and June.
Yeah.
It had come down and come closer to production, but July has, the changes we most recently made had the biggest impact.
And there are other questions that, again, like, hadn't really come up for us, like we've come into rooms like even this one, and like windows have been open, which then is going to impact what's air conditioning is calling for, you know what I mean? So like there are different things that then lead to a question about, do we need a policy about opening windows or not, or we leave that alone? We've come in and doors have been ajar, or kept open for probably a very good reason for someone letting, but that's impacting where it's calling air conditioning to and things like that. So I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion, but it feels from this perspective that like a lot of movement got made very quickly with a really good partnership with LLD, and that's been really good. So that's kind of the update on that one.
Yeah,
And
that has
just
been a
gonna
key
be an ongoing-
partnership.
Yeah,
right
it's a great
there.
partnership. So those have been really good. So the electrical and gas will be kind of an ongoing piece as we study that piece, but I know that was really important to kind of get under control, so we're much closer with that piece. We had quotes done or finalized to add fob and handicap access to the gallery, to the outside patio. And that came in at $9,000 or $9,385.12. And then the electrician came out because it needs to be wired. We're waiting on a quote from him. We had a quote out to change the flooring on the steps to match the rest of the hallways. And that quote came in at $7,365. And that install would take about a day and a half, and it would not interrupt patron or librarian work. They would rope off that area and use the elevator to go up and down all the tools and test where the TerraCycle bin is, and away from patrons. So that can be done safely as well. The metal gate upstairs is not firmly secured to the wall. Sam's been working diligently on that. And that's the only contractor we've had difficulty getting a hold of. So Brian has stepped in to help with that as well. And then we are pricing out a rain diverter, which is needed over the employee entrance for safety. There's a quote forthcoming for Allo, but the way the building was designed did not take into account some of the rainwater runoff, and it's really important to get that done before that becomes an ice skating rink and a safety issue when staff are coming in and out. And then we are working on the car charger installation forthcoming. We're waiting on an electrical quote for that. And then with all these items, it's been great to partner with people, and we're working on developing a long-term maintenance list and calendar with Sam, with the town, with George, so that we're in a groove, knowing that we paint on this holiday, or the filters get changed this often, or things like that. When we get to new business, I'm going to need to have the trustees discuss, approve, and authorize in order to move forward with additional work and ultimately fund it. The money exists for these projects, and a meeting with Alicia is set for next week to determine and solidify which account, which work would come out of. The trustees have previously authorized $400,000 to cover this additional work, and these quotes are far less.
So Ruth, just backing up, so we said we had a $15 million building before the building, we broke ground. And the building currently, at the last update I had, was 14.7 million and something. So we are still under budget, but the library raised more money in our fundraising push. So we have a little extra there too. So we have plenty in that $400,000 the trustees agreed to cover these things that I think will help with building function.
Yep, and we're not looking for that much.
It won't be that much for sure.
But the amounts we'll be asking for, we've prioritized asking for and would like the trustees to consider shades in the YA room, which we think will also help with the electricity component of it, because it can get very, very warm in that room. And the shades should help with that, and that's a cost of $2,528. We would like the stairs refinished for a total cost of $7,365. We would like the handicap and fob entrance from the gallery for a total cost of $9,358.12, plus the electricity, which we are waiting on the quote for. We have committed to the car charger outside install, and that will be the electricity cost, which we are waiting for a quote on. And I would like to prioritize, for safety reasons, the rain diverter by the staff entrance, and we are waiting for a quote on that. So when we get to new business.
Why don't we just take these now?
Okay, if we can do it now, we would like to.
So I was just gonna say, if we have already previously authorized
And I don't know if we have to authorize the money.
do it new.
The funding towards projects has been previously authorized, so I don't know.
We should need to authorize the work projects.
Right, yeah.
Those things specifically.
So I don't know if I'm going to formally make a motion that
I think it would be helpful if you could make the motion.
I'm not very good at making the motion, so
You
usually
guys.
so my best be, I would like to make a motion that the following work is approved by the trustees to proceed. Specifically installing shades in the YA room, refinishing the stairs to match the other flooring, installing electricity and all other needed components to make the entrance from the gallery to the patio handicap and fob accessible, installing electricity and other needed components to have the car charger outside of the library moved and installed, and installing a rain diverter over the staff entrance to the library.
Right, so the way that I'm gonna put this in the minutes is, I'm just gonna bullet your thing. So I'm saying, is Isaac moved that the trustees vote to authorize the completion of the following work? List out the items.
Yeah.
Does that seem like a way to do it, as opposed to making it like a sentence?
If we are told we're wrong, we'll come back and amend it, but I
Right.
think that's our top.
I can second. Do you want a second, Sarah?
I'll second, yes.
All right, all in favor say aye. We'll start with Sarah.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
And I am also an aye.
Do we need to also make a motion that this work would fall under the previous agreement by the trustees to fund, or?
I think we're covered at this point, and our meeting next week will tell us if we need additional motions
Okay, great.
in our September meeting. So to follow up on this, I asked Kimberly to reach out to Alicia, who is the finance director. We've worked with her before, but just to sit down and run through the building costs and all these final things as the as this fund runs out and this fund runs out, we need to just make sure all these ducks are in a row for paying them, and what comes first. Like, there's the grant, and there's town money, and there's like all these buckets. So we just need to make sure all of this is clear and that we wrap this up in the next few months. And the state grant comes in a few months too, so that will help that. So, and the rest of the fundraising pledges are supposed to be in by the end of this year too. So there's still some of that building project.
With that information, that's great, because our goal with Sam is to have all the warranty, our personal goal is to have the warranty items wrapped up by the end of July, which gives us a little bit of cushion. There are some, then to take a look, because we will have been in the building, for a year, coming up on our anniversary, and start to look at, what's working, what's not, and start to track stuff monthly. Furniture is working, what we know is going to need to be replaced 10 years from now, what's going to last longer, things like that, and start to put lists together so that as a trustee group, collaboration with library staff, we can start to prioritize what the next expenditures are going to be over time and make a really thoughtful kind of 5-year plan, 10-year plan.
And also to give it to a regular annual maintenance that we can share with town. But that, I think, is the next step.
100%.
That was a lot. Thank you.
We did a lot. Everyone did a lot this month.
But thank you for taking all of those, like the emails were just coming fast and furious from everywhere and putting them in one summarized place that we can, in an actionable way, that we can also track over time. So I really appreciate the time and effort and brain space it took to pull that together.
I think it's just easier to have one reference document back. So
Completely agree. We had a lot of people involved, so it was nice to see it come together and be actionable. All right, Sam, you're up.
So some updates on June 13th. I attended an Aeros workshop with MBLC, and pretty much not much has changed over the last few years as far as what I have to do for reporting. So I'll be working on that. I just got the numbers today from MBLC for the information I need to fill out the report. I attended Third Thursday on July 16th.
Could you mind just explaining what, because we have some new faces, what
Sure.
Aeros is?
Sure. So Aeros is every year I have to fill out 2 reports. They're both Aeros. One's called Aeros and one's called the Aeros Financial Report. So basically these reports contain information like how much we've circulated over the past year, how much we've circulated with other libraries, what our holdings have been, program attendance, information about the staff, about how many staff members we have, what sort of degrees they have, how much money they make. And then there's other various little questions. So that will be the first Aeros report that will be due sometime in September. And then in October, November, I'll have to do the financial Aeros, which includes information like how much money we've spent on books and on programming, and how much money we get from the town, and how much money we get from friends groups and other grants and that sort of thing. And then that information is used to determine whether or not we are certified by the state. And then if we're certified by the state, that means that we can engage in reciprocal borrowing with other libraries and we're not blacklisted, basically. And also it means that we're eligible to receive state grants. So the building grant we received because we were certified. The Access for All grant that we received recently, the LSTA grant, we received because we were certified. So if we want to continue to receive grants of that nature, we'll have to continue to be certified. And if we want to lend books to other libraries and borrow books from other libraries, if our patrons want to do that, we have to be certified. So all these reports basically are to show that we're open the number of hours we're supposed to be open, and we're spending the right amount of money on books that based on the budget we received from the town. So that's the MAR that you might hear me talk about. The MAR is based on population of the town, and it's a certain amount of the total budget that we received from the town at town meeting. So for our population, it's about 19% of our budget. So we had to spend at least 19% of that budget on books and databases and other materials.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. Sure. So, as I said, I attended Third Thursday on July 16th. The next Third Thursday is next week on Thursday.
I think you meant June 16th, right?
Oh, yes, sorry, June 16th. Summer reading began on June 20th, and it's going very well. We have 406 kids signed up, 60 teens, and 42 adults so far.
It's super cool. The online piece is got a
Really
lot
adults
of adult
and
buzz.
adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of, like, we got a lot of friend requests. Like, well, like, here's my code, here's my code. I'm like, I haven't done this yet. But no, it's super fun to see like the leaderboards and stuff.
Nice. I attended a select board meeting on July 11th, and we received a $3,000 donation from the Hoban Foundation. And so we just had to get it approved by their select board, and they did. And so Bruce Hoban donated it, and he wants $1,000 to go towards new children's books, $1,000 to go towards new adult books, and $1,000 to go towards general operations. And yep, so the select board has accepted it.
And thank you for that donation.
Yes, thank you very much. As far as the budget goes for the end of fiscal year 22, we ended it pretty well. We spent pretty much everything in payroll. We had very little left, which is different from previous years. I think a lot of that had to do with our new schedule of opening at 10 a.m.
Mhm.
Materials, we spent everything we needed to spend from the town and to reach the MAR. So I don't see any issues with us being certified for next year.
Awesome.
And then there was a town spending freeze, so a lot of the rest of the funding didn't get spent.
Is that the town programming budget?
Yeah, the town
There was, like,
programming.
that chunk, and it looked like the third that you would be saved for the end of the year, right?
Right, yeah, so a lot of that had to do because at the end of the last fiscal year,
Yeah.
there was this town spending freeze. So yeah, but we budget pretty good, came in on budget. The rest is
Looks like we
stats.
have a little more office supplies. And,
Yeah, it can be taken out of,
another bucket.
it can be taken, they really don't care unless it's, too much, but
Okay,
yeah,
so we're still under.
yeah, we're still under.
Did you find some of that was just related to things in the building?
I was gonna say,
Can I ask you one question? Is there like any process, just going back to stuff, when you get a donation like that, like do the trustees write a thank you, or is it just library thank you, or?
We do write the tax letter that
I
Katrina did.
haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's in Susan's to do.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's just that because we had to go through the extra step of going to the select board this time.
Yeah.
Normally we wouldn't do that. It's
Yeah, I haven't checked my box
Yeah.
today, but
yeah, she's also been out the last couple, well, in and out.
This makes sense for the trustees too.
so and then have they given this? This is directly to the library.
Yeah.
We should do something just to say.
Yeah.
I'll do the tax letter, as always, but a personal note never hurts.
So door count has been really great. We have 3,651 people in June. And
So that is a large jump from, and I'm skipping the 2 pandemic years, from 20.
yeah, it's
Like,
huge.
That is crazy.
We've had a lot of people coming in, a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, new families.
Great.
So it's been really great. And circulation's also way up over the previous years.
Do we know if that corresponds with just the rise of people in town, just out of curiosity?
I don't think that, I think that jump is above the.
It seems like way
proportion of
above,
time,
right?
right?
No, it does.
I
I'm
do,
just
but I
curious.
think, I feel like we've been looking at the door counts since we opened, and they have been elevated, but this
Yeah.
one in particular was.
Yeah.
Just to see really happen. I was just curious.
Substantially elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, summer reading is always the
It's a
big,
time.
is always the big one.
I do know that there've been a number of families who haven't used the library.
Mhm.
I know them, younger families, new to town or whatever, that have come in for summer readings. I think it helped that summer reading was published through the schools and stuff, because I think more people, new people. saw that.
Let's see. The rest is really just standard stuff. We registered 175 new borrowers this month or in June. Added 267 new materials. Museum passes 80 passes got used, 19 objects got used in the library of things. We're closed on June 20th for Juneteenth.
Things that the staff is looking for specific to the library things, or you feeling solid right now?
I've had at least 2 recommendations from patrons. I got an email about a yarn weaver. I have to look it up. Usually it's random things that I've never heard of, but it's patrons think would be good additions. Let's see. Student staff, Susan has really been the one working on the adult summer reading program, so she's doing a great job. Catherine has also been working very hard on an adult summer reading, and Diane, it's super busy in there every single day. So, yeah.
So nice.
yeah.
And I have to say, Catherine's comment about the shelves seeming thinner in the YA room is
Yeah.
totally true.
Oh, yeah, it's totally true.
So I think about 30 in my house.
Are you pretty sure I have the same amount?
It's all at my house. So, Sam, not today necessarily, but the other thing that I've been meaning to ask when we've had these meetings, and it's been like all building and stuff, but like the library stats, I'm just curious, like some of these that have had like 0 page views and like 0.
Yeah, we're getting rid of them.
Well, I don't know if we had to or not. I'd love just like, I don't know if it's even in the next director's report, just like a one-on-one on like, what do we have to have versus what do people feel passionate about versus.
So building on your comment here, remember that part of SAM's performance objectives is to take a deep dive into whether SAM's director's report in its current format is the information that us trustees would like to see here and are helpful to us to understand how the library functions. So yeah, so this is Sam's way of educating us to how things are happening. And I have seen like, this is your format forever, probably since you started, right?
Yeah.
And if you have made changes, if you added the like, already in response to our comments about wanting to hear from staff specifically and things, which I appreciate. So trustees, and I can remind them, just as part of Sam's performance objectives, I think it's Sam's supposed to be looking at his report.
Yeah.
And we should also be prepared to look and give feedback in the October meeting is the timeline that we suggested. So if you guys do have comments like you would want to see, this would be a great time to think about them and share them with Sam so he can start thinking about whether it's feasible, not feasible, what makes sense, or is there another central location that we could store ongoing stats like the page views or something that we could collect over a year or something that doesn't need to be in this report, but it could be accessible on a daily basis. I don't know. Things to think about. How to get information. What is the information that we as trustees would like to learn, and how then we can talk about how Sam can easiest and succinctly deliver that information without taking a million years of his time to pull it together.
Yeah, if you just share what you would like to see, I can.
So you're definitely finding some of these databases aren't being used. So
yeah, the A to Z databases, I don't think they get used that much. So we just didn't renew it this year.
Okay.
And then there are a few others that I think they give false information because sometimes they're definitely getting used because we hear that they're used by patrons. But then when we look at the statistics portals that they provide us, it says nothing. It says 0 views, or it says, so it's sometimes it's partly us having to do a deep dive and talking to patrons about whether or not it's actually getting used. And because once we take it away, that's when we hear from patrons. Why did you take that away? Right.
So, and the databases are, remind me which budget piece this comes from. Is this?
That's the general book town
Material. Okay, thank
Yeah, and then some of the databases are provided by the state
you. Awesome.
for free. Well, not for free, taxes, but they're free to us. And then also something I just remembered going back to building. I've heard a couple of complaints about the curb. Apparently patrons are hitting the curb when they come in. So we might want to, I'm not sure, but I know that Linda Ward actually had to have a tow truck come because she damaged her car enough. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's when you're first coming in by the tennis court or when you're coming down into that little entrance here, but apparently people are hitting the curb there. They're not noticing. So maybe we have to put like some sort of yellow line or something.
But also explain why a lot of people are not parking in that area.
Right. Yeah, that
I
was-
do think there's not too long from now, the whole area is gonna change.
Right, exactly. That's the other thing. So I just heard about this today.
Okay.
But
Could you keep a track of how many people are having reporting this? You said 2. So,
yeah, too.
it is something we can put it on the list to see who we can talk about how to make that more visible, I guess.
Right, and then it's going to change again.
It's gonna change again
So
in a year.
It also seems like it's fairly, I don't know what
It is
changed,
tight
but
there.
it's very, I feel like the whole lot is very tight since they dug it up. So I don't know if it's just getting rid of all the spaces here.
It is, and find like, yeah, it feels like, you can get stuck waiting, like, as people, it's just crazy when you come down this way.
Mhm.
But I can see how someone taking a wider turn than like, I don't know how they manage there, I'm not even sure which curve, so it would be good, Sam, if you could figure out which curve
Mhm.
specifically, and we can do a walkthrough and
True.
see if there's something we can do. All right, thanks for adding that to our list. All right, good to know. I'm sorry that happened.
too,
The curves are high.
they are.
The only other question I have from your report, Sam, is volunteer hours. No senior hours, no student hours, student scholarship hours. So someone's doing like books and bites or, like the joint, do those get tracked under council on aging volunteer hours or?
Your senior hours here are the tax relief.
Is that what that captures?
Or would that also captures Andy's time as a volunteer for library for books and bite?
So right now, I don't know if Andy's reporting her hours. So I think that's part of it. And then we don't really have, so that's another thing for the report, whether or not a volunteer is subsidized. So if someone's getting senior tax work program hours, it doesn't count towards the report because technically they're getting something for it.
Okay, that's helpful.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do we have any of the tax helpers on the library currently?
I think someone's working with Diane or was. I'm not sure if she still is. And then there is someone that takes the recycling, but I think he technically works for George.
Okay, but there are people who are.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
And this doesn't capture like the friends when they're managing the book.
That's necessary, yeah.
It's just, I'm just curious.
That's a separate bucket, but yeah, Sam, there's no way Sam would be able to track that.
No, I'm not looking for Sam track. It's so vibrant and there's so many helpers here and this number just looks so low that I just wanted to know what it was.
Yeah, you're right, there's some of these that don't get counted under our.
That's okay.
volunteers, and that's okay to know.
That's okay.
I have to say, it has been really fun to see the scholarship, both of them. It's been great to be sitting here working and having a conversation with each of them.
Yeah.
It looks like they're working out. Are you?
Yeah. Poor Declan, he hurt his leg and he still comes in and he hurt his leg at home or somewhere else. And yeah, not here.
I was like, not your injury.
Not here. But yeah, he's been like, we have to like make him sit down. But
He is a machine.
yeah, he's a machine. And then
Yeah.
Priel's great. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
great too.
she's been here a lot and awesome.
Yeah, she is.
I was just gonna ask how they're doing.
Are they on
Like, are they
target?
They might be a little late. We're-
So Priel is going to college at some point.
Right. So we're trying to get her through quicker. And then Declan, he's still
Declan is a
a
junior.
junior. So
It would be nice if he could finish up, but so this is a good conversation to have in September, but like, it's actually part of our calendar discussion later, is just probably with Sam, it seems like these March to August time is like a good time to have the students
Yeah.
be here.
we also started later this year than we normally would have. I think we chose them much later in the year than
So
we
right
had in
now,
previous years.
I've kind of kept them on the like
Yeah.
advertise in January, select them in February, and have them do their hours March to August. But if we don't think it's feasible for them to finish in that time, that's one thing.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that we give them ample opportunity to finish. But the second part is, so should we be doing our scholarship earlier? So let's revisit this in September. And I really want to know what works for the staff best too. So,
Choosing them earlier, if nothing else may make some sense, like between sports and drama seasons and things like that.
Yeah, well, that was the thing with Declan. He was the prince, right, or something. So, yeah, so,
when you're constructing, it's hard to come work at a library.
right.
Uh,
So, part of it's really based on the kid every year, what their other requirements are. So if the kid's not in drama or whatever.
Yeah. But I just wanted, it's a balance between offering them ample time to finish before they go to college, especially if they're senior or, Declan will be here. We can ask him to finish in
Right.
September or whatever if we wanted to, but
But the process itself, even just like having to meet us, and having to go through that process. if
I
that's
think
the
we might
process
need to
you
bump
need,
it.
If you did that, even if it was from December, January, and they still won't start till March, at least that's signed, sealed, delivered, if there's a.
Yeah, I'm
delay
just
or
afraid of
something
advertising it in December and expecting them to be able to interview in January, the holidays. I don't think that's,
else. No, not during the holidays, but
Realistic.
it's, yeah.
I think we need to either advertise in November, interview December, or interview January, like one of those two things.
I think
But you think they're both on target to finish in August, and Priya will definitely, I don't know when she leaves for school, so. That would be, well, you will tell us in September if they make it. Cool. Anything else you want to share, Sam?
Good.
So get Sam feedback on the director's report. You have months to think about this at this point, but if there's something that you want to see different, that is part of his performance. That's yours to reevaluate whether this is the right format or not.
Oh, there is something I wanted to add.
Okay,
The hotspot program, MBLC, we received 5 free hotspots.
Yeah.
And that's going to end in September because they didn't get any more funding for it. So I've spoken with Nancy about getting some that through Verizon now. Like she used to provide them anyway, the hotspots we had before, the free hotspots. So I think she's going to cover it out of her budget,
all right.
but I still have to talk to her about it.
Okay, so can you, that will be September, right?
Yeah.
If you need us before then, let us know.
Okay.
But it'd be great if we'll just tackle that in September.
And then, that's about it.
Do you know how many you want to get, like the usage?
I'm probably gonna get 4.
Does that make sense for the library?
Yeah.
Usage that you've seen?
It's probably the thing that goes out the most.
I do think those probably are the ones that go most.
Yeah.
It's definitely copy. But I think we have like 6 or something, so I don't know if we need that many. Great. Thank you for catching that is funding is up and looking into replacing that. Okay, so old business. So in anticipation of our scholarship recipients finishing their hours and us not having an August meeting, I think we need to, we approved 2 scholarships for $2,000 each, but we didn't actually move the funding for said scholarships. So I asked Kimberly to look into, I think we should do that now. Ask Kimberly to look into which fund to move from. She recommended, this is the motion she wrote for us to discuss. So motion to allocate $4,000 from the BART fund account number 314, Second Century Librarians Fund, ending earnings in order to fund the 2022 Gray Ronde scholarships. Looking at this, it is, I think her logic was great. I have no problem with this person. So unless anyone else has something to add,
Can you send me the language?
so I
Can
can't move.
I'm motion, you can.
You
got
can
it.
say,
So moved.
so moved.
So moved.
Okay,
And I'll copy it into the minutes.
so I'm sending it to Chris for the minutes. So moved. I need a second.
Second that, Sarah.
I second.
Thank you. All right, so all in favor, Chris,
I want to get it in the minutes first before.
I've sent it to you.
Okay.
Wendy.
Aye.
And Sarah,
Aye.
and I am I as well.
Okay, hold on a second. This is not right.
Sorry.
It's okay. Actually, to.
Does the motion say where you're moving it to? Is it MMDT?
Oh, nope, we didn't. It needs to go into MMDT.
As moved.
Thank you. As amended.
As amended. Wendy motion.
Wendy motion to allocate $1,000. So they each get $2,000 from Barth Fund account number 314.
Get better. First time we did this, Sarah. Because I move trustees allocate $4,000 from the Barth account 314 second sector libraries fund ending earnings into MMDT. In order to fund the 2022 Randy scholarships.
Yep.
And Ms. Donovan, second.
Unanimous. Okay,
So
so
these things reloaded, so just think of it.
I just wanted to do a quick policy check-in right now. Not to review any policies, but just, we had Mark and Kimberly were doing our policy review. Mark is no longer a trustee. Kimberly, when I spoke to her, she said she would be happy to keep, she has her organizational system and everything all together, so she's happy to continue working on that. I do think a second person on policies is a really good idea, just in part because we need two people writing, editing, reviewing under a quorum so that we don't have to have open meetings every time we're reviewing things too.
I wouldn't mind helping.
You don't have,
I have not.
we can have up to 3 people on that
I'd
committee.
like to give myself
Okay.
doing something.
Sarah, I think this, if you're interested in helping with policies, I think this is also a really good way to just learn.
Yes, I told Kimberly I was interested and she sent me some files that I need to start looking at. So yes, I'm on board for that.
Okay, so I think the 3 of you should spearhead this. That would be great. Great. So in the meantime, Kimberly did update all the policies, worked with Sam to get them formatted and on the the library's website. So they are updated on the website. And hopefully the staff is aware. I think you told the staff, and then that way patrons have access to them as well. And then, so there's a couple policies that I think not only do we need to look at the ones we haven't done yet, but the meeting room policy, I think we need to reopen, and we'll probably need to reopen it for our September meeting. I'm going to pause that. I don't know if September's the right meeting. Sam, I would love the staff to have feedback on the meeting room policy, given their experience over the last years. I haven't seen it, but maybe some Kimberly's hands.
They did give me some feedback. I haven't given it to anyone because we haven't discussed it
We
yet.
haven't talked about it.
Right. So I can share that with everybody.
Okay. Do you think what I would like before groups start using the meeting room again, given some of the behavior things that we've had reported to us, I think it would be great to do our meeting policy first thing in September. And then as part of that, I would like to look at the room reservation reminder email and just make sure we're pointing to our policies so that people have, they know what their expectations are in terms of not using the gallery as the racetrack and keeping kids in the room and staying with kids. You can't just release them to the library after meetings without supervision, especially kids under 12. All those things. So like if we can take those, I think that's an important one to do soon.
Sure.
Is there a policy that you feel or the staff feels we need soon?
Probably no. Meeting room's the biggest one. We should probably look at Library of Things. I think I'm gonna have to move Library of Things off of Assabet and put it into the catalog. Not only because I think it's easier for patrons and staff, but also MVLC, as more libraries are starting to add Library of Things, they're starting to come up with their own policies and a more streamlined approach to how they should be loaned out. So whether or not they can go to other libraries or not, and that sort of thing. So we should probably review the Library of Things policy also.
Do you have the information for MVLC on that?
Not yet, because they're all still work there. It's like herding cats.
Okay.
So no, they're all working on it right now.
So that is
So
one we need to reopen.
yeah, we should at least review it. Yeah. Can't think of anything else.
It makes sense. It's a new policy that it needs to be reviewed more frequently.
Right. I think the other policies are okay.
Okay, the volunteer policy might be the only other one I can think of that we need to review and see if it needs to be.
That's what I was gonna suggest, now that we have a summer of new students under our belt in the new space, and it's looking at different collaborations, does it cover everything we needed to cover, just to keep everyone safe and moving forward, so I think that's the one I would suggest reopening as well.
Those are my 3 that I think we should prioritize.
Okay.
If I am not on the library policy committee, however, those would be my recommendations to the committee. All right, thank you for continuing on that. Okay. And I think when we look at the volunteer one, we'll share our feedback so you guys can understand what we were just talking about there. I haven't looked at it in a while.
I
Okay.
looked at it today, I think it's
I think
really
it's
very
very
close.
It's close.
I didn't really have feedback, other than just saying that, yeah, but I think we're really close.
Great.
Yeah. Well done.
Awesome. Okay. Any other old business that I didn't have on the agenda? Maybe not. Okay. So then new business. So the library, when Sam and I did like the Super Thursday thing with the select board, when they wanted to hear from all the departments, as I was sitting in the back of the room listening to all the departments, Nancy from IT was talking about how the websites hadn't been updated for each of the boards in a long time. And that got me curious, what does the library's Board of Trustees page look like? And I realized our description is outdated and needed some refreshing and updating. So I emailed, I believe earlier this week, the description, which I've gotten feedback from everyone on as the description. And if everyone is okay with that, in the meantime, Kimberly has reached out to Nancy to get login access and training to know how to change our own trustee board page, whether we can do it or if she needs to do it. Like she's working on this, moving this description onto the website.
The description I could change.
You can change the description.
Yeah, and I can show Kimberly how to do it if she needs.
Perfect.
The board names, I don't think I can change that. I think that's
I think it's not Diane
I
Curry.
think that's Dan Curry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will have Kimberly touch base with you and
Sure.
make sure you're circled into that conversation, just so if everyone's cool with that description, then she can move forward on updating that. Okay, so then I also included in our discussion for today, the library and trustee calendar. There's two things, two parts. One is the calendar I sent, which kind of has the, this is the format. When I became a trustee, I asked Sam, I was like, I had no idea, things were coming out of left field, and I asked him to pull together a calendar for us so I can kind of understand the annual things that we had to do. So that is, I took his format and I updated it this year. So if everyone has had a chance to look at that, that would be great. I did add to this the trustee connection event, which I heard from some of you. I haven't heard from everyone. That's okay. So the idea was that, and having done one by myself, I think it would be great to very least, we have a chance to talk without a quorum. But it is good, I think, if you do have, I had at one point had 3 people talking to me about 3 different things. So it was wonderful to be talking to people. Even though I didn't advertise it, I had people talking to me. And so I think it'd be nice to have 2 people in case you have multiple people. I also want to mix up who's together in part because our schedules are different. So I'm hoping we all hit different times of day, different groups of people, things like that. So Kimberly did say she would do September. Sarah said she would do November. I did not put a second with either of you. I know you said you could also do September, but I didn't want to make you do 2 in a row. So
I can do November with Sarah.
okay, great. That's okay. Well, so there are,
I'm happy to.
Chris, there are no because I want the 2 people who are scheduled to put their schedule, or 2 are on that month to decide when to do it.
Just tell me what month you want me to do.
Will you be able to do September?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So you and Kimberly should connect about September. You 2 connect about a date in October. Should it go to Susan?
Yeah.
Okay, Susan will get it on the calendar. I hold mine in the gallery. Probably pick another place, or just set up a table somewhere. It was fine. It was the day I was down here. I did it in the afternoon. There were still some people coming in for summer reading signups. I just sat right by the coffee. They were having a gallery showing for the current artists that day, so I had a lot of those attendees. I was chatting with them. The teens were having their tasting event, like the weird food event, which then they enticed me to go try with them, and that was actually fun. So at the end, I got to join them. And then there was a bunch of little kids coming in for signing up for summer reading, which was adorable. And I actually got a long chat with Demetra, which was awesome to catch up with her because she's seen the other side of this to get her feedback on. It was great. So you guys can decide the date, the time, and just connect with Susan to get it on the calendar. And then I do think we might need to just come up with a reusable image that we can then just put on the website just to say that it's happening, like we do some of the other events or most of the other events get published.
In January with Kimberly too, if you want.
Thank you. So if we all do 2 in a year, then you'll be covered. Okay, Chris, you can look at the dates or the months that are later if you want.
As long as I know when and where.
So I think the next one after January is April, and I'm doing that.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I'm gonna put us down for April.
That sounds.
And then we're into June, so that will be the next elected board. All right, we can see if this is working or not working, or we can talk about whether we continue this. But otherwise, a lot of these have the annual tasks, like the Aeros reports, the mini golf I threw on here. It doesn't have a date yet. A lot of things don't have dates at this point. We should finalize this when we talk about when to do the advertising and the scholarships and the interviews, things like that. But if you guys want to look at this, we can keep finessing it, but it's here to give us some structure to our yearly activity. The other thing is we should start, I know last year was like fire hose, and we started a little late on our town budget, but I think we should start discussing that in September. We're putting a small group together to work with Sam. Or Sam should put it together and then review his work. Okay. Sam, do you have any question or comments about this? Anything you see?
No. Are we going to talk about early closures?
That was my second part. One thing I do want to point out on this calendar is June 30th, 2023, Sam's contract is up. So at this point, this year, we need to start that process. And I will ask, do you know when that process starts typically? Have you ever had a renewal?
I've had one.
Do you remember?
And it was just sort of, do you want to renew it? There wasn't much that went into it.
I will see what I can find. All right, so the second part of the calendar is is not currently in this calendar. We will add them later, but Sam has prepared in our packets a list of dates where we want to have staff, the library closed for staff meetings, development time. Remember, we asked Sam as part of his objectives for the year to make this and the staff have asked to have a regular staff meeting. So Sam has, and to do so, we have to close the library for a period of time because otherwise we don't have a budget to add hours for them to come into this. We need to close the library to do staff meetings. So unless we get more funding somehow, that doesn't work. So on this form, Sam has proposed 4 staff meetings for the next year: September 20th, November 13th, March 7th, 2023, and June 6th, 2023, to close at 10 a.m. To 1 p.m. So the library will open at 1 p.m. I do appreciate that you chose Tuesdays so they would stay open until 8. Where the staff, do you think the staff would be able to make these times?
Yeah, that's how I came up with them. I spoke with the staff and they all kind of felt like Tuesdays were the best days. That's when we used to hold them.
Oh, okay.
So they're good with that. And yeah, so I chose these dates so I could have staff meetings, and it gives me enough time to schedule workshops and that sort of thing.
In season holidays, like just Jewish holidays or
That was my next question because I had not grasped that.
Jewish holidays, Diwali. So that's newer one coming up. See anything else big on multicultural that we keep at school. So they looked great. So to me.
The other 2 dates on here, given that the last couple of years we've had a last minute holiday closure discussion, it felt like it would be nice to not have this in the last minute.
Right.
So I asked Sam to look ahead at the current calendar for potential holiday closings at the end of the year.
Yeah, so November 23rd, we normally close at 4 on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We've done that pretty much every year since I've been here. And then Christmas Eve is always a weird one. So this year, Christmas Eve falls on a Saturday. So
Christmas Eve is hard because the town doesn't decide whether it's closed or not.
right, because they're
until-
already closed on a Saturday.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't even matter this year because they're already closed
Yeah, so
Saturday.
this year's an easy year.
Right. So in the past, the town has closed on the day before, or they've closed much earlier, but it's been sort of out of the blue where they decided like a day or 2 before, and we can't just close like the town can close, because patrons depend on us to be open. So I know a lot of staff love to close on Saturday, or even close earlier, but it's really a decision up to the trustees.
I would totally close on the 24th, and I think that 4 is generous. It's gonna be, I would be comfortable with even earlier, kind of wait for the staff meeting.
I feel like, so the traditional being at 4 on the day before Thanksgiving. That's what we've traditionally done. That's what the town.
Town does their own
I know the town does their own thing, but I feel like
yeah.
it's like.
Well, the town would be
in that
closed at
afternoon.
around 3 anyway.
Yeah.
So, so the library would just be 4 hours earlier, 4 hours earlier.
I mean, the other thing is I have scheduled a meeting with Anthony just to touch base. I haven't done it in a while. Again, I can ask if they have what they're thinking for holiday closures before, and we could do this in September. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Sam. I mean, I asked you to do this.
Well,
So
as far as Christmas Eve goes, they're going to be closed anyway.
yes.
So
I feel like Christmas Eve I feel like your proposal here is solid, in my opinion. If we, in my opinion, this is.
So in my experience with Anthony, he usually leaves it up to the library trustees to decide. It's been different with every town. Well, Keith, yeah. So it's usually up to the trustee. Anthony will leave it up to the trustees.
Okay. Anyone, Sarah, or anyone want to have other comments about these closure proposal?
I defer to Sam on this. I mean, obviously he knows what the patrons, what the history of the closing is and what the patrons would want. So I trust Sam's opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, seems reasonable. to me.
This proposal seems reasonable. Wendy, you're
Yeah, no, I think this is very reasonable, and again, I think it's looking at traffic and like in the library, what have you, and just, what the town typically does. I don't think you have to line with the town, but it's certainly reasonable, and that there would be something like Thanksgiving Eve, but I think with respect to the librarians and the people that have to be here that late as well, when most offices, businesses in the town tends to close early. Last minute, and we're not able to close last minute. Telling people well ahead of time allows council on aging, other people to make plans around that piece. Very transparently, so I think it's really respectful of the library, the town, the patrons, to say now that this is our time.
How does this impact the early closure and the holiday closure? How does that impact our staff? Like getting their hours and paying, like their salaries?
So as far as the early closures for the meetings, that wouldn't impact them at all. In fact, some of them would make more
Will they
money,
be paid?
right?
Because they'd be
Because
there?
they'd be there for a meeting. As far as holiday, so usually it depends on who's working. So if we know ahead of time, if there's someone who's not benefited, we'll have them make the hours up some other way. And then benefited staff, sometimes they just use their vacation time, or again, they just work they shift their hours.
So us setting the schedule early allows you time to make sure they get their hours.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is another reason we can't just last. Okay,
We do not know.
and we do need to vote on this.
I'll make a motion. I would like to move that the trustees approve the closures of the library as discussed above. I've listed all of the dates as Sam had put them on his proposal. That we approve the closures of the libraries listed.
Second.
All right, we'll go Wendy,
Yay.
Sarah.
Aye.
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 And I am an aye. Thank you for looking at that on this, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, and then, so both calendars are all discussed. We've already approved the work for the building. Okay, so we're on to other business, unless I skipped something. I don't think I did. Okay. Does anyone have any other business they want to bring?
Were we going to discuss the request for the gas money for Andy to do the deliveries? There was an email about that.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about that yet. Yes, that is full
Okay.
for now. So earlier this week, Kelly brought to our attention that the Books in a Bite program. Okay, why don't you describe the Books in a Bite program first before we get too far?
Sure. The Books in the Bite program is a program that we are collaborating with the COA on. Amy Todden, one of my library assistants, and Andy Curran, a former librarian here, are basically they are getting recommendations for books, and then Andy goes and delivers these books and a snack to various patrons that are homebound and cannot come to the library. So it kind of varies the amount of people that are involved in this, the amount of patrons that are using the program, but it's around 5 right now. And so basically, we check out the books to the patron, and Andy delivers them. And the Council on Aging has been giving Amy a gift card to Market Basket to purchase some of the snacks. And then Andy takes the snack and the books to the patron and has a nice little chat with them sometimes, and then comes back. And then she picks up the books as well when they're done. And so Andy, with gas prices going up, we'd like to see if Andy can maybe be reimbursed for the mileage she puts in. She puts in about $20, and I think, what was it?
20 miles.
20 miles. 20 miles. Yeah,
About
twice
40
a month.
miles a month.
Yeah, about 40 miles a month. So, so it's,
When did she start doing the deliveries? It's been a year, right?
I think it's been a year, but it's been a few months.
Do you guys have questions about the program or?
So I had questions about the program. I think it's fantastic and I love that it exists. And I think that, obviously we want to take care of not Andy because she's Andy, but any volunteer that's putting wear and tear on their car or, taking their own time around this sort of thing. I think the part that gave me a little bit of pause when I was talking to Helen about it is that if Andy's, that it felt a little bit about this was about Andy specifically versus about a program. And, I was very upfront with Helen saying, my job as a trustee is to make sure that the program is sustainable. This is about one person, but about, the sustainability of it. And I think Helen's concern was, please don't throw a bunch of mulch on our flower and bury it. And that's not my intent in any way, shape, or form. But I think that if you're asking me as a trustee or to sign off on this as a program, it has to look like a program. Like I need some kind of tracking of where you're going. I need to know days you're going. I need to know that you've read the volunteer policy because it exists. I need to know you're accountable for some of those. So like it does give me a little pause that like Andy's not included in the volunteer report. She's not reporting hours. She's not, things like that. And it could be that we haven't asked Andy to do that because she's, such an institution at the library. She's Andy. But, so again, I'm 100% invested in figuring this out. But want to kind of take a step back and say, so how do we make sure this program lives on beyond Andy? And are we doing right by it? So like there was a number kind of thrown out to kind of reimburse for gas, but if you look at the current gas reimbursement, like Andy would technically be owed quite a bit more than that. So like we're shortchanging that piece of it. And then there was a discussion about like, would she accept it? Like if we gave it to her, like, well, but again, like if this is the program and this is how we're reimbursing, and then it appears that like she can be reimbursed, we can approve funds and like turn in mileage sheets so that it's tracked. And so that we ended up leaving, I left the conversation with Helen with a lot more questions. And wanting to talk to the COA as well to say like, again, like how do we partner for this? And if this is a volunteer position, the question I threw out is like, what if our teens wanted to do this? And the answer was like, oh, no, we wouldn't let that. Well, why not? What's so different? And then the discussion kind of came up around Helen saying, well, we used to send 2 people and that felt better to everyone. Okay, well, that's really interesting to me. So do we need to look at a partner? So, and again, I don't want to kill this. I don't want to make this more complicated, but it feels uncomfortable for me to say, let's kind of just solve this one little problem without really looking at it as a program. And I love the program. I think it's fantastic. Helen said that it had actually grown quite a bit. And there's a lot more interest in it, and a lot more needs, and that there were some questions that the COA had as well as in terms of who, like someone had it because of an injury and now they were kind of staying on for other reasons. And I think that's great if we can do that piece. So I actually had a fair amount of questions. And I think the next step that I thought we had left when I spoke to Helen, she was there as well, was let's sit with Helen again and then kind of talk with Liz as well.
So I also think we need to, so I wrote down, I have a list of questions. I'm similar, like I will happily personally even fund Andy for the time she was currently spent. I see that as a separate issue, reimbursement for past hour gas mileage used versus now we know this is a program and it's a program that's sustained and interest is sustained in, that we should make sure that it's funded properly and that we have the right, any documents about where they're going, proper training of volunteers, safety of volunteers, things like that, just to make sure that we are not putting our volunteers in just uncertain situations. Like, so I want to learn more about the program, and I'd love to start with like talking to Andy and Amy and having their description and input, and then we can find where the gaps are, bring Helen in. And then I would also like to talk to Liz because I have a lot of questions about how they identify the people who are qualified, or like who they identify and how they decided they were the right ones to send here. Clearly a homebound person, in my opinion, would qualify, but and then I believe COA actually has, drivers and volunteers that do help in people's homes, and I would love to learn more about how they train those individuals and whether that's something that our volunteers could learn from, like use that collaboration to make sure that they're aware of what they need to be aware of for their own safety and things like that. So
when we talked about the policies, like, I went back to the library volunteer policy, and it seems like, again, not to make a suggestion now, but if there was a line in there saying that library volunteers working across programs where there's a collaboration are expected to follow expectations of both agencies, that would probably cover everything. I'm guessing COA probably does have different training or different expectations.
Corey,
Or
like things like
whatever,
that.
right,
Like, there's a
things
lot
like
of
that,
things
or-
here that I think,
Or even just like if you knock on the door and they don't answer,
Yeah.
I'm guessing COE has a protocol that, like, it's a library person, I wouldn't be
I
thinking
mean,
at all,
actually,
right?
don't know. Yeah.
But these are things that we just wanted a chance to talk to Liz about, things like that, so that's where, but I left it with Helen, like, yes, I'm 100% supportive of you, the program of this, but it is a fan of questions, and it's uncomfortable to not have a volunteer then following volunteer protocols, but coming to me for funding of a volunteer program. Like that to me, like, I can't get behind that. So I do need some policy moving forward, like 100% take care of it, but that I can't do personally. I won't vote for that.
We can submit mileage as part of the funding for the program. So that is, Andy should be tracking her mileage and submitting it. Do we have a form for that? Or do we need to create? We do have a form. Okay.
I don't even think Andy knows about.
I
A lot
Well,
of
that's
this-
the other problem, right? That's,
I think-
that's,
Andy's such a doer.
This is-
problem solver.
This
I think
is
he has a-
Amy saying, "Oh, I think Andy should be reimbursed. How can we go about doing that?" And then everybody else got involved, and then
I'm
it's
well intentioned, and
right.
and I don't want to make this, I feel badly because I think the impression is, oh my God, I just wanted someone for $50 someone's way, and now it's like, why can't you just get her Starbucks super? Right? I feel like I feel badly that's become this, but again, like in my understanding of my role in this here is that it's a library sanctioned program, and we're using library sanctioned funds for that. I couldn't any more than I reimburse
think-
Sam for something that
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I wasn't, my brain did not go there right away, but I think, if someone's going out and being in someone else's home, like, I think it would be irresponsible to
and
not
Andy
have
has
some of
been
those things
quarried.
in place.
And
Yeah.
as
I was
every
like,
staff
she
member,
has, yeah.
every staff member here has been quarried, and then
But
we
she's
have
no
to go.
longer a staff. So
Right,
she's
we're not-
And I don't know if
already-
she needs a query. I think just the most basic, like, if I trust you and you said to me, I needed, whatever amount of money because I bought something from the library. My inclination would be, okay, let me write you a check.
Mhm.
My obligation would be to say, I need the receipt.
Mhm.
And in this instance, I don't have a receipt. I don't have a
Mhm.
document. I don't have anything. And so when I look at that, just as my obligation as someone with a purse strings, like, we have to at least start there. That doesn't mean we don't take care of her historically, but it's not an acceptable ask to come to me and say, with no receipt, with no documentation, with no dates, with no volunteer hours, with no nothing, to please cut a check. And that ultimately can be something I can say okay to. And then longer than that, we do want to make sure if it's not Andy, who we of course trust and who's essential here, and is essential here, and knows, I trust her judgment, there's not even a question about that. But what if it's not Andy? And is this an opportunity for someone other than Andy? I talked to 3 people in the book room newer to town that I've passed on to friends who are looking for ways to volunteer. I don't know that this is needed for here, but is it accessible? Is it not? Is it, I don't have the answers to that. And that to me would be Andy or Amy's and Helen's decision to make, not my decision. But it's not documenting where how is that. So that's kind of where I went. But ethically, I couldn't do that piece. So
We want to make Andy whole with the mileage. That is our intention.
100%.
Or my intention anyways. But I also agree that we need to formalize what information we're getting out, like how many patrons per month, how are they identified, how do we, what's Amy's time frame, is she doing it on hours, off hours? Like, there's a lot of pieces that we need to learn more. And to make it so that it's a solid program and we're not putting staff or volunteers or patrons, whoever you're delivering to, in harm's way. I just want to make sure that all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And it would be great for Andy to begin submitting those mileage forms so that we can actually know the cost of this project, program, per month, per number of patrons, like what's the average, so that we can adequately fund it.
Sure.
Too. I agree with you. It's hard to not know how many hours she's put in and then and to see, like, I can see solving the problem quickly, easily, but I don't think it actually solves the problem. I think we need to solve the problem by actually doing the work to solve the problem. So what do we need to go forward? We should start by meeting with Andy and Amy and learning more about the project. Amy and Andy. How long will be involved? I'm really fine with that if you think that's the right person to be involved.
Helen just kind of,
She's
she was just trying to make it happen.
I mean, the question, right, is now.
she's a great advocate for the state.
Right.
Is it a
And
COA program or is it a library program?
It's both.
It's a collaboration. Isn't it an official library program?
Well, I mean,
That's what I
it's
thought.
it's on the
That's what I thought.
COA's
We don't-
newsletter.
I've actually seen it advertised in
Yeah,
the
it's a
COA's
COA newsletter.
broadcaster.
Yeah.
So it is an official program via them.
Right.
So I do think we need to then also, is sitting down with Liz the right,
Yeah,
another right first step?
we should find out from her what sort of training and policies they have. I don't know that. Yeah, and then I'm sure this sort of program exists at other libraries. So I can reach out to the other library directors and see
I would love to hear what
what kind
how
of policies they have.
how they not only train, what the process is for their libraries, and then also what information they provide to trustees outside of it.
I need to support it.
I know, I wanted to support it.
We need support 50/50.
But the other thing is, like, how big can it grow before it can't be sustainable too? So like, we do need to have a little bit of guardrails there.
Sam, if you're comfortable doing that with libraries, I'm happy to take this if you want to do Andy, Mimi. Go back in September. Meet again and formally-
Is September too long until we meet again and put all the pieces together?
I think it's fine.
She can still submit and be reimbursed. Programming budget,
But do we need to do something else?
non-town programming budget.
Right.
Do something else.
Do we need to do a motion or something else to be able to do something else between now and September? Or?
So it feels like the future, like July 2023 on is part of the budget program, budget. Non-town program budget.
Right, so we can speak to the friends. I can speak to the friends next week about whether or not they want to fund it. Because it can come out of friends, it could come out of our state aid. It could come out of MMDT if you guys want to fund it that way. Just probably couldn't come out of the town budget, but it could come out of it.
We need a motion so it comes out of something different.
So the question is, should trustees be owners of it at least for now?
Well, friends have always funded a lot of our programming, so I think if anything, it should be friends.
We need a motion that we fund friends who want. So it doesn't delay until.
They are also not being until September. So.
They don't mean next week.
Didn't the meeting?
Yeah,
they
it's
skip-
yeah.
They're skipping July, maybe we need not.
It was August, it was August 17th. They're skipping July, their next meeting is August 17th.
I'll make a motion that we fund the summer,
We'll find July and August,
July,
Out
August,
of-
out of.
MMDT, which we have money in there, I believe.
When we say we're gonna fund August and July, what does that mean?
Mileage for August.
And state reimbursement.
Are we going to go retro on mileage?
So I think we're talking fiscal year 23.
Just moving
forward.
forward, so we're not gonna back.
I think that's a separate issue.
That would address it.
I see them as two separate issues, the make Andy whole versus the
Yeah.
going forward piece.
Yeah.
So let's talk going forward. At this point in time, what was the motion?
Let's make a motion that trustees will fund mileage for any volunteer, library volunteer participating in Books in the Bite for July and August of fiscal year 23 out of MFTD funds, MFDT funds. That's the state mileage reimbursement rate.
And we still have money in MMDT covered. And then this would be a great thing to ask friends if this is a program they would like to fund. It would be great if Andy could submit receipts for the July, August, so they might be able to project cost for the rest of the year.
Smart basket to pick up treats and we use that. Correctly, they use smart basket.
Right, and then I do think the second piece is the retroactive mileage has already been.
Do we need to vote on that motion first?
Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you.
I'm sorry, back.
Yep.
This has moved that the trustees approve funding for mileage for any volunteer for books and money out of MMDT funds at the state mileage reimbursement amount for July and August 2022. And I'll second that.
Okay. We're going to vote on that. So Wendy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and Chris.
Aye.
And aye. Okay. So the second part is do we want to do something to thank Andy for the time she's already and effort, mileage she's already put into this? Helen was recommending do you recall what the email said?
Gas card or $75.
So Helen recommended a gas card for $75, which is definitely under current gas prices.
Well, I think it's the mileage rate, if I'm calculating it correctly, it's 62 a mile right now. So
Yeah, that was the increase from the current gas thing. I think it was still 58
if you
per
do
mile.
it, you do 62 at 40 miles a month. You're at basically $25 a month for mileage.
That's going since like 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah, I think it's been at least 5 months.
So that's $50 a month. If you want to do it with
You said 25.
that's 25 a month, 50 times 40 is 23 a month. Just give me the
Yeah.
graph. Give me the data, Katrina.
Yeah. Okay. So 25 a month. Helen said 75. Andy's gonna not like whatever we do because she'll probably not accept it.
And you can donate it back to
She
Library.
may donate it back if she really, if she throws a fit, you can tell her she can donate it back to the program and she can pay it from July and August. Anyone want to suggest anything?
I say we go with Helen's proposal.
But
I mean,
I trust Helen to have a feel for this.
yes, I mean, she's not tracking mileage, so we don't know exactly, so we're kind of making a ballpark, so, I mean, if that's what Helen suggests, that's kind of, does that feel?
Yeah. I don't think she's going to accept it anyway. so.
I mean, I doubt Andy will accept it. However, I agree that she has put in time and effort and money of her own for this volunteer on this thing, for this program that has gotten started here. So, can we pull this from MMDT or does it need to be a separate thing pulled out?
So a gas card, I can buy it. I just don't have my credit card right now because my credit card, somebody used it to buy something at GameStop, so I had to cancel it.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm expecting a new one in a few days. So by the time I get it, I go out and get a
if your card doesn't arrive in a few days, will you let me know and I will go get it?
Sure.
And then submit my receipt.
Or Helen has a
Helen
card. She,
or Helen.
yeah, Helen can go get it.
So that can come out of the trustees end. Okay. Someone want to propose, you propose that.
So I'm going to move that the trustees approve a $75 gift gas card Andy Curran as a thank you for her role in Books and a Bite for spring 2022 out of MMDT funds.
A second.
Okay, Sarah,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Wendy.
Hi.
And I will aye. Okay. Really looking forward to hearing more about this program. So I will, like I said, email Andy and Amy. They've already started talking. They told me when they're available, so I'll see if I can make it them. You're gonna reach out to Liz?
Yeah, and if I'm happy to send them to you too, if that's something that works out for my thing, send a message.
If you make a meeting and I can make it after the joint. All right. Sam, do you want to be part of that? Yes, okay, so you two make a date.
Great.
Sam, what do you, if that's enough, just get started?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the other new business item, other business item I had was, I keep saying this has come up multiple meetings, I've made no progress. So clarifying the role of, now that the building's closing, the fundraising that was directed for the building is closing down, it's coming to an end. I think this is a really good time to clarify the roles of trustees, friends, staff, and make that known to, just to sit down and make sure the relationship is solid and that we all know how we advocate for the library and what lanes we're going in. So I think this is like that critical time just to take the temperature again and make sure that both groups, friends and trustees, are on the same page, and staff. Sam, I would love for you to be part of this. And I know that looking around from other libraries and the trustee stuff that I see, that I know that some other mass libraries organize a meeting with a non-quorum member of each group. So a couple of trustees, a couple of friends, and the director to just sit down and just talk and like start brainstorming and making sure that the relationship is still functioning. It's still a healthy relationship that's really supporting the library. And so I know like some groups do this every 3 years or so, just to take the temperature again. And so that I was talking to Sarah independently, actually. Sarah said the same thing to me. So we both have been, Sarah Rombacher, so we both have kind of come to the same point independently. So I would like to do that, not right now while we're drinking from a fire hose on the building, but like September, October, to kind of put that, ask friends if they would have a couple members who want to sit down and just talk and see where we are. Can you bring that to the next friends meeting and see if they
Sure.
are amenable, or I can actually attend and ask, or I can ask Mira to ask too. So the question then is, we would need 3 or less members to be, as the trustee, to participate in that kind of group. I would really like to be part of it. Discussion. But if 2 other people are interested, let me know. Mira maybe should be, as the Libtrust liaison. I feel like that's a natural.
I think that's just because I've been involved for over the long haul,
Yeah.
so it'd be nice to see.
Yes.
Yeah,
Transitions.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you guys okay? And we can always tag out if, like, depending on the date, we might mix up who's there. But does that work for you, Sarah?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I will see if Mira wants to be part of that, and then. Great. And I think that is all of my other business. So if no one else has other business, we are at Trustees Updates. Hey guys, we're not at 9:30.
Because 2 people are missing.
Maybe. We'll blame it on those 2. Just kidding. Okay, so trustee updates. The reason, so I reorganized the meeting agenda because I realized so much of what I was presenting as my update, I was part of the later business. So I was just thinking that if we could do the business first, the updates have already kind of fallen out. We can hear what people have worked on. But then also they just shorten, they get summarized differently if they're at the end. So that was my intention. If this does not work for where it is, let me know. We can try differently ways and things, but, Wendy, if you want to start.
Yeah, and I think I'll just be really brief because we did a lot of building stuff, which we've already gone through. And I worked with Sarah Rohbacher a little bit in the donation room. And I have a connection at More Than Words, which is where the friends donate the books that are not appropriate for the donation room over through my school. So I took the donations over to More Than Words. And I'll be doing that throughout the summer and then into the new year, over the year. So I think that we've got a system worked out so that hopefully they don't have the backlog there. And we can kind of be back next together. Is it my school goes anyways, and they were really grateful for the donations. That's a nice collaboration, and that's important to me. So I think that's worked out really nicely. And huge kudos to the friends. It's so organized in there, and the
That's so
donation
nice.
bin is really organized. The donation room, like where they're stocking in for the bins, it's going to be going really nicely. So it's been nice to be part of that. And that's really pretty much it. I'm doing a lot of reading,
You have time for reading.
I have a lot of insomnia right now.
Okay, that's not the best kind.
So yeah, but it's you get a lot of reading. That's good.
Sarah, do you want to do your update?
Sure. I don't have much, but I did help set up the table in the tent at the June 3rd Thursday. So,
Thank you.
and I'm going to start working on the policy review with Kimberly. So,
Thank you. They're both great things.
Yes, I also attended Third Thursday. I think it was the opposite side. I helped pack up and clean up at the end of the night. And it was just nice to be out and see people in town. And I don't know, it was just kind of a out of the house kind of thing. I continue to email with Susan regularly with her mouth on documents and bills and payroll and credit card statements.
Yeah.
I was away last week and I think I really annoyed her because I didn't tell her I was leaving and she was like, reminder, reminder, I'm like, oh no. But that's fine. I have no problem doing that. That's an easy thing to do. And looking forward to working with Sarah and working on some stuff with the policy. Also reading and doing a little bit of writing, which I haven't done in a long time.
So I have, like Wendy and Sam, been drinking from the fire hose with the building warranty, specifically the electricity part. And the other, I also attended Third Thursday, which somehow we managed to not have a quorum standing around the tent, which was good for us. We all shuffled. But I agree, it was nice to be back into a normal town event. And I did that first trustee open house, and like I said, it was really nice just to talk to random people who were very excited to be here. And the thing I realized this week was, and that trustee open house made me realize, is that as much as we see all the thorns and what's happening underneath, most people don't see any of that. So the staff just has made an amazing, vibrant library here, and that's what most people see. It's amazing. And then the other thing that I did with my daughter is for the garden tour that came through at the end of June, my daughter and I used the landscape plan, which turns out is not correct for some things, but we went through and labeled the plants in the landscape so that the people who were coming for the tour to look for native plants that support pollinators knew what they were. And those stakes, where correct, are still in the plots, in the gardens, so that people can look at them. So that's what I did. I think that's it. Unless anyone has anything else to add, we are at the adjournment, and our next meeting is September 8th, 2022. We are skipping a month for the first time in years.
I move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor, we'll go Sarah,
bye.
Eddie,
Bye.
Chris, and I am an I. We will see you on September 8th.